So what is your official title?
Official title, I have two. Vocal director, global vocal director, and campus producer for a Farragut campus. And I'll kind of expound on what that means in my talk. So.
Yep. But I met him about 2 years ago, and he's got a lot of knowledge about building teams and all that good stuff, and he's going to share it with us today. So I'm going to pray, and then we'll get going, okay? Lord, we love you. We thank you so much for today. Thank you for every single person that is here, God. We just lift up this time together over this next hour, God, and pray that it's fruitful. Give us wisdom. Give us good questions to ask. And God, we just pray we hear some good answers. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you all very much for allowing me to come and speak to you all today. Just a little FYI. I don't consider myself a communicator, so when Pastor Josh asked me to come in and talk to you all, I was incredibly honored and a little bit taken. He's like, I'd love you to talk to the board of Churches Playing Churches Network, and it was like, hey, this is great. Wait a minute, I'm not a communicator. So I kind of had to catch my breath a little bit and calm down, and I said, yes, I would love to do this. What's the subject? He said recruiting and assembling teams, and I said I've done that a time or two, so super honored to be here. Thank you, Pastor Josh. Thank you, board, for letting me come. Like Josh said, my name is Phil Holloway. I work at Faith Promise Church. My title is Vocal Director, Global Vocal Director. So what that means is I shepherd and teach and sort of am over the vocalist of our Faith Promise Global Church. My background is actually in music education, but my other job, my weekend job, is actually more on the production side, which I had no clue I had any skills, and I really don't, so I don't know how anything really works, but typically what I do on the weekend is I will make sure that the experience happens. So before I jump in to my talk, I just want to let you all know a little bit about myself. I grew up in South Knoxville, Tennessee. My man over here, Chris. Jim. Bob. Robert. Yes. He actually planted a church in my neighborhood where I grew up. It was right on my bus route, and it was an interesting upbringing. South Knoxville has basically every socioeconomic crammed into one little spot. So I grew up in South Knoxville in a non-traditional kind of household, if you will, in the sense that I didn't grow up in church. My parents were musicians, and they were traveling musicians, so it was kind of like, we were kind of like the Partridge Family. So a lot of times we would go to school Monday through maybe Thursday on a good week, and then we would hop in a van with the band. It was like this 13-piece horn band. And we would go all over the place, and when they weren't doing a lot of cover music, they would get picked up by your Motown groups or your Percy Sledges of the world, and they would be these background, they would be the band to all these people. And me and my brother were, both little guys, and we would be up on stage, and of course, our academics ultimately suffered, but we were on the road, so we were like, this is awesome, And that was sort of our thing as we were growing up. We were always gone. So it was interesting to me during high school growing up. Church was not a priority. Really, what I knew of church was Charlton Heston movies on Easter. That was about all I knew. And Ben-Hur, I actually at one time thought he was real, like a real guy, and he's not. Unfortunately, dreams crushed. But yeah. So it was kind of an interesting upbringing. Like I said before, academically, I was lucky to pass school from about 3rd grade on. D to me was for D's get degrees. So my GPA wasn't really high. But I kept passing grades. And I would look at it as how is this possible? How did I get from one grade to the next? Because looking at paper is kind of like God's math when you tithe and you don't have enough money, but you have enough money. That was my grade situation. And his teachers would just let me kind of, pass on because they kind of knew. And I always heard, hey, you're a great leader. And I'm like, how am I a great leader? I make D's on everything. Like how, except for my music class, the only A I ever received was in chorus. Thank you very much. So that kind of saved me. But anyway, I was always told, hey, you're a great leader. And I'm like, I don't understand what that means because I fail things all the time. So I asked this English teacher. He was like the greatest storyteller ever told. His name's Mr. Luke. Looked like Jerry Garcia. And he sat down with me and he said, you're a great leader. You're going to lead people one day. And I'm like, well, why? I was like, I'm the bottom third of the bottom third of the class. I basically come in here, my work is, I failed career orientation. You're not supposed to fail that class in high school, and I did, successfully failed it. And I said, why do you say that? And he said, because you get people behind the vision, and you can lead them to do things. Now at this time, I have this belief that there is nothing insignificant. I was kind of in high school, let's see, I loved high school. I didn't pass it very well, but I loved it because of the people. And a lot of times I would do these fun day, Monday fun day, which means I would get a group of people and I would talk them into going to Gatlinburg for the day. And we would just kind of show up at the Bilo, it's where you show up. And then instead of going to school, we would all get in the car and drive to Gatlinburg. And we always had one guy with us that was a local, and at that time, if you showed that local badge, you got into everything for free. And no one's there on a Monday, so Fun Day Monday, me and my team would go up there, and we would go do all of the attractions while we told our parents we were at school. And then we would come back, and that would be our day,
Awesome.
Yeah, it was great. And sometimes we would come a little bit early and maybe hit up the last two classes of the day. Of course, we'd bribe the ladies in the office not to call. We'd bring them donuts, like Big O we have here. And they would just let us in, and it was like this great thing until we got caught. And we were up there for Halloween, and Ripley's, believe it or not, haunted house was up there, and they just opened, and it was a Monday fun day. We went up there and ended up going on the news and being like, this is the greatest ever. Awesome. And Mr. Luke pointed that out. He said, you're a great leader. You got all those people to ISS with you because you led them up there and you got them on the news and then you all got in trouble. You're a great leader, but you didn't lead in the right scenario, if you will. So, with that being said, I decided really, I guess later on in life, I wanted to turn it around. So I went to college. And started at community college level. Grades were not good enough. I've always been kind of a hustler when it came to that kind of stuff. And so as I started really getting serious about my studies, music was the only A I had. It was the only major I could think of that I could do. So I studied vocal music. My whole trajectory was to be a chorus teacher. I wanted to be a high school chorus teacher because it meant a lot to me, and it was the only class that I could kind of go in and do my thing, and it made sense, so I did it. And during that time, as I was honing my craft, I started at the community college level, and I ended up at the university. And when I went to the University of Tennessee, I met a girl. And I was asking Pastor Josh about this when we met. How did you meet Jesus? It always starts with, I met a girl. If you're a guy, it's, well, I was lost, and then I met this chick, and she was hot. And so she goes to church, so of course I went to church. And then from then on, I met this girl, she's my wife now. And so she started going to church. I started going to church. I met Jesus, changed the trajectory of my entire life. Right there because I met a hot girl. So, as I finished up my college studies, I wanted to teach at a high school. And it's funny how God will put insignificant people in these very significant roles. So, my first assignment out of college, I was working on my master's degree. And like I said, I was a hustler, so I was at the middle school for my second part of my student teaching, and I had a license, and I was like, hey, I could use this license, this interim license, I could actually get this job that's really here, so I could like double dip. I could get hired as a middle school teacher, I could make a little money, and on top of that, I could work on my master's degree. So I interviewed for the job, they gave me the job, and I thought that was amazing. And this was at Farragut Middle School, which actually is a very significant part of why I'm here now. So, I always wanted a high school. I finished out that semester. Instead of finishing my master's, I was going to go to Carnes, which was a really prominent choral school. There's a lot of music there. The teacher I was teaching with at Farragut was going to middle school. It was going to be this like massive, awesome program. And that's what I wanted to do, and it's going to be super easy. I already worked with the kids, and I had this idea. That's where I wanted to go. And there were already, probably 200 kids in that program or whatever. And it was we were ready to go, and then I get a call from Lenoir City, Tennessee. Hey, your name came up. We would like to talk to you about a job in high school. Now, Knox County happened to be on a hiring freeze. I was like, cool. So I'll go talk to these people and just get my interview skills up. I really did not want this job. This was the most undesirable job on planet Earth to me. There were 6 choir directors before me. 6. And they've either been fired or they left within these years of just coming in. It was a revolving door. The last guy I went to school with, I was in college with him, he said, if I don't make this successful, you can have my job. So then he was the last guy there. So I come in, I meet the principals, I fall in love with them. They're awesome. They show me this new facility. It's amazing. Everything is like a blank canvas. Except for the fact there were 6 directors there. And then I asked, how many people are signed up for the choir? 15. Total. So, that was one of those deals where, you're a leader. You have to build it. God put me in that situation. I really think He called me there because all my chips were at the Carnes job with 200 people, and then Lenoir City with 15 or so. So I didn't know what to do, so I prayed about it. God really prompted me to take the Lenoir City job. Does that make sense? Absolutely not. Everybody I asked, should I take the Lenoir City? No, I would not. This is a direct quote. If they paid me $100,000 a year, I would not take the Lenoir City job. So I said, okay, I'll take the Lenoir City job. And I walk in, and I have to build it. And the first thing I did, I said to the guidance, I said, hey, do you have people? Yes, we have lots of people. How many people are in this school? 1,200 people are in the school. Awesome. I have 15 in choir. Don't touch this choir because they're my top group. And half of them can match pitch. This is my top group. And, I'm like, I have to have something I could work with. The rest of the people, you could just throw them in there. So I went from 15 people to 183 people in a day. Because Guidance just said, okay, He opened the doors, and they just threw people in, just randos. So as I'm walking in the first day, I started asking people, hey, how many of y'all signed up for the class? One hand went up. And this is a class of 90 people. And it was like, okay, great. So as God put me in that scenario and we started really building that program, it went from 15 people in 8 years to, on average, we're at 200 people a semester. So we employ, when I was at Lenoir City, we had basically about a quarter of the school, I would say a little over that. The program was thriving when I got called out of it, and we'd done amazing things. We took a trip to Europe. I took a group of kids from Lenoir City, a speck on the map, to Prague. And it was like, how on earth does this work? This is why I'm like, God, you're real, because this is impossible. When I went to pitch that idea to the board, they laughed at me. Like the board meeting, very similar to this. Hey, I want to send the choir to Prague. They laughed, and they said, good luck, son. And then I left, and then we did it. So, God blessed that. And then I got called out. During this time, I guess the last 2 years of my teaching, I've really gotten involved at church in the worship side, doing vocal things, singing, leading worship, stuff like that. And my first assignment was actually at one of our multi-sites when I got hired on. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit after this, my multi-site experience. But as I started really getting into church, God started tugging on my heart that I needed to get out of the school system, and I needed to start looking into full-time staff. So after my 8th year, actually got the opportunity to be full-time staff at Faith Promise under vocal director, as well as this new campus producer position. In those of y'all who work in churches, there's never one job. There's your job, and then there's other. So what I do at Faith Promise is essentially my Monday through Thursday deals with a lot of the vocal side, and then my rest of the time deals with multi-site campuses. So essentially what I do is I plant multi-sites. So when we go to plant, I go in on the production end, on the experience end is what we call it, and I'm in charge of the experience. So when you walk in the door and you go to the worship center, everything in that room, musos, production, catering, all of that is under my leadership. But I'm only there for a partial amount of time, and then I hand it off and I go to the next plant. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's just a little bit about me. So as far as my titles at Faith Promise, I went through that. I've been to 3 separate multi-site scenarios. I want to talk about that today. Scenario 1, my first assignment coming out as a contractor, we had consumed a church, which means the church was going under. They came to Faith Promise. They said, hey, we're not going to survive as a church. Can you take us over? So Faith Promise voted in, and we went through all that. So we ended up taking over a church, and ended up being Faith Promise. In my first time out, this is my first church job. Remember, I met Jesus in like 2006. It's now like 2011 or 12. I hadn't known Jesus that long. We'll just say that. We were a little more than an acquaintance, but it was one of those deals where I'm walking into a church job, I'm not feeling good about it. I walk in, and my team leaves because they were with the other church. I come in, they leave. So that means the rhythm section of my worship band, they leave, and the worship leader that was there, he leaves. So it's basically like you're in this scenario where you're treading water and you're trying to make it work. And scenario 2, when I come on staff, they let go a person. The culture was down. I had to come in, create a new culture, and get that back on track, and then build teams from that. The third scenario, which I'm in right now, is we're completely portable. Now, I have no training under all of these scenarios. There's absolutely no training. There's not a book that I know of that's like, well, if you go portable, this is the way. It's just basically just like figure it out. But through all of my background, and I said this earlier, there's nothing insignificant. There's nothing insignificant in your life. If you do really well at Forrest Gump impressions, that will play a role in your life. I don't know how, but it can play a role in your life. All the experience that I had teaching, I had to use in all of these different scenarios to build teams. In each multi-site, as unique as it was, my job was to build teams. So I got to thinking about that when I was asked to do the talk, and I was like, what did it take for me to build teams? And I thought about it, and as I thought about it, I realized, I've been told I'm a good leader. I've been told you can lead, but it doesn't matter how good I am. If you don't have people, then it's moot. It's a moot point. You can't lead if there's not people there. So what is the most important thing? People. How do you find them? How do you find the people? First thing is to be accessible. Be accessible. You put yourself where the people are. So what does that look like? How many times do you find yourself around massive amounts of people? So, for example, when I'm doing a multi-site, I try to office in that community. So, for example, we launched in Farragut. And the cool thing about being a multi-site is that we really, we're nomadic. So everything is wireless. It's on a laptop. There's 2 prominent coffee shops in Farragut that I go to weekly. And the point of being where the people are is that if you are consistently at these places, conversations are going to be had. You're going to be able to invite people. It was the other day I was at the coffee shop and a friend from church came in with another friend, and it was one of those deals. It was a great opportunity just for me to say, hey, how's it going? My name is Phil. Hey, have you been to the Farragut campus? I didn't know it was there. So Farragut essentially is the best kept secret in Farragut. And if you're not where the people are, they're going to have no idea where to go for you to recruit them. So you have to put yourself in that community. And every community has this nice glowing blue and white structure, and it's massive. I think it's called Walmart. Have y'all ever been to Walmart before? How many times y'all been to Walmart and you run into someone that you know? And how many times you've been to Walmart, you run into someone that you know, and you don't invite them to church? So when you invite them to church, what this does is if they decide to walk through those doors, if they come through the doors of your church, and you invited them, instantaneous, they have a connection point instantaneously because you invited them. So if you're there, they can come up and say, hey Phil, I showed up. Well, that's awesome. Great. So then what happens? Okay? So you're going out, you're inviting people, all this other stuff. The next thing that you have to do in order to recruit your teams is you need to be approachable. All right? Be approachable. So I'm going to tell you all a little story about being approachable. In this one, I'm actually talking to myself. So right around the time I have 2 boys, 7 and 4, right about the time that my son was born, my oldest son, I decided I'm going to go to the gym. Because I looked in the mirror and I kind of looked like a bowling pin. It's like a reverse tear or a teardrop, and I was like, I'm not looking too good. Kind of like George Jetson, not even going to lie. So I decided, it's like I have this boy, and I'm going to be a good influence. I'm going to start going to the gym. Okay, I'm not a gym guy. Like you look at me, I don't look like a gym guy. We all don't look like Pastor Josh over here, who's jacked. So I'm going to start going to the gym. So I get a gym membership. And so through the years, I've kind of gotten into it a little bit. So this past year, we had this girl in our small group who works at a gym. And I'm seeking for a gym at this time because I had let my membership run out or whatever. And she was like, yeah, we can give you a really good discount at our gym. It's a great gym. It's huge and lots of stuff. And I was like, cool, and again, I'm not a gym guy. I don't really, I like to go to the gym, but I don't lift a lot of weight. I'm not that big. So I said, yeah, I'll try it out. So I go to this gym. And it's literally like Globo Gym from dodgeball, like everyone. It looks like everyone there. The price was ridiculous, like $15 a year type of thing. It's like, but everyone looked like the He-Man action figure. Y'all remember that from back in the day? Like He-Man, all of them looked like He-Man. The women included. It was awesome. Except for the fact that I go and I sign the paper and I go to work out the first day and I'm looking around I don't really fit in here. I don't fit in here at all, because I look like the guy that fixes the equipment. You know what I mean? And everybody else is there, just getting jacked. And I'm going to go on a side note because this is a funny story. So the other day I was there doing legs. I was doing the leg workout. And so this, I was about halfway through. We have these big 100-pound plates that people will leave on there all the time. And they're heavy, and most of the people can get them off, but there's some that can't. And so I was in the middle of my workout, and this lady comes over to look, to do the leg machine next to me. It had the 100-pound weights on it, and she literally walks over. And she looks at me and goes, and walks off. and And I was getting ready to finish up, and I was going to offer, hey, I could get those off for you. And then she gets some big dude to come over, and he's like, oh yeah, I can help you. And I was like, really? Really? I was right there. I can lift 100 pounds. I swear I can. But anyway, so as I'm going to the gym, it's one of those places that I'm like, I like to go to the gym, but I feel really uncomfortable. And everybody here can lift twice as much weight as I can. And what I didn't realize is I was there working out, and it was kind of a crowded day. And so I'm doing my weights, and this guy comes up, and I recognize him. And he's like, hey man, you're Phil, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I go to church with you. And I said, oh, cool, awesome. He said, yeah man. He's like, you just working out? I was like, yeah. He's like, you okay? I was like, yeah, I feel fine. He's like, well, you look really mad. I was like, I look really mad. He said, yeah, you look really mad. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? He's like, well, you know, I mean, like your face right now, you know, you look really upset. And you know, me and my friend over there, they go to church here too, and we noticed, like, you know, we're just making sure you were good, man. You know, you look like you need to work out. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. What I noticed is that my face, they have a name for this. My resting face looks angry. I have an angry resting face, which we'll call that. We all know the name. Yeah, Grumpy Cats. So Grumpy Cat's over there, and I realized they're like looking around the room. There's like 9 people that go to church with me that are in this room, and here I am, you know, walking around. And I'm really awkward anyway, like in this gym. You know, it's one of those deals where the girls are like, "Hey, have a good day." I'm like, "Happy birthday." You know, I don't know what to say because they're all, you know. So I realized at that moment, like, I'm not an approachable human. Like, my face is not broadcasting approach. I look mad. And come to find out, he's like, yeah, man. He's like, you know, on Sunday, man, you're walking out of the worship center, and he's like, you look so intense. And he said this all happy, and I'm thinking like, dude, shots fired, man. You were punching me in the gut verbally right now. But I realized that we need to be approachable. So you get the people in the room that you invite. If you're not approachable, they're not going to take the time to talk to you. If you have a mad face, that's one thing you have to watch out for. What is your face broadcasting? Are you on your phone? That's one of the things I tell my volunteers all the time. Don't be on your phone. Because you got to think about it, like people... Take notes.
Notes.
Yeah. So don't be on your phones. Like if you are in public view, don't be on your phones, because otherwise that's just like, you know, you're closing yourself off. This one's a big one. How often when you walk in, especially like, you know, your production muso types, they're all in little circles of their own people. Have you ever noticed that before? It reminds me of the circle dweller guy that like is in high school. You know how in high school you're standing out in the commons, everybody's in a circle, and you got the one guy that walks in the middle of the conversation like, hey guys, oh yeah, cool man, yeah, sweet dude, but he doesn't really belong. So he goes to the next circle, and he kind of pops around, and what that guy ends up doing, he ends up being an outcast because he doesn't belong to a circle. So my volunteers are not allowed to stand in clusters of each other, because they're going to sit there and talk shop. And that's an opportunity for someone that's random. They might not know Jesus, or they just met Jesus and they really want to get involved, and automatically they're annexed from the group. They're out of the group because everybody's standing in their little subgroups. You know, there's a time for that. I allow time for that at breakfast. You know, but if you're standing in your groups, you're not approachable. One of the big rules I tell my volunteers for approachability, be in the lobby. I want you to be in the lobby. I don't want you to hang out in the worship center, because it's real easy, especially for production people, to gather around the soundboard and, like, you know, look at stuff. It's kind of like the guy that when a car breaks, they just jiggle wires and have no idea what it's doing. But it's real easy just to be over there with your people, you know, just kind of talking shop, or, oh, we missed this, we missed that. I'm like, hey, between services, I want you all out in the lobby. And I don't want you talking to me. Well, aren't you supposed to love on your volunteers? Yes, I'll love on you at breakfast time, but when we're out here in the lobby between services, there are new people walking in. I have to meet them. And you have to meet them. And that's what you, and I don't care if you're a flaming introvert, you have got to meet people, because if you don't replace yourself, then you're going to kill yourself, because I'm going to put you on every Sunday for the rest of your life. So, you have to go out into the lobby. We could say hello or whatever. Don't stand in your groups. Don't be looking at a cell phone. Look happy to be here and introduce yourself to someone. You're wearing all black. You're already interesting enough. You have the conversation piece right there. It's like the gym. When I'm at the gym, I automatically have a point of conversation with people. Hey man, what are you working out up today? That opens up a door. Hey, would you like to come to church? There's my asking of the people. They come in. Hey, yeah, cool. How are things at the gym? Hey, come on, check this out. You know, and see what we do. Blah 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 blah. So, being approachable. That's a big thing. Big thing that I tell my team all the time. Now, for my existing people, the people that are already bought in, be a coach to them. Be a coach to them. And what that means, and this happened right when I started teaching, I learned this. When I wear my jacket and I got my staff badge, I could walk up to any person in this room and say, hey, join my team. Because I'm supposed to. Because I'm staff. And that's what staff is supposed to do. If you have a group of people who are bought in and they love what they do, and this is the crazy thing about us being portable. Like my teams, it's fun. It's fun when they come in. We laugh and we make fun of each other and have a good time, and we're setting up. I mean, it's grueling. We're in a building that was built in the 60s. It's falling apart. We're just having a good time, you know. When you're and the experience is awesome. So when you have this winning culture and these people are just, you know, pumped up to be there, there's more weight when they go out and they recruit for you. Because we're supposed to. If they go out and they go to their buddy and it's like, hey man, you really got to be a part of this. Well, I'll consider that. Or, you know, you work production, right? Oh yeah, man, it's incredible because we do this. That carries more weight. That carries much more weight than when, you know, if I'm out there just shaking hands. Because that's what we're supposed to do. You know, it takes 3 interactions with a random stranger in order to really do a snap relationship, as I call it. Because then you can know their name, you got some kind of thing, and you could then, after the third relationship, or third conversation with them, you could actually, you know, start to bring them in as far as, hey, what are you serving, that kind of stuff. I would never recommend doing it on the first conversation. That's weird. Hey, how's it going? I'm Phil. Do you want to join our team? What's your strongholds? Are you sinning? Great. Join our team. You know, that's weird. That's not natural. You know, so make 3 interactions. Have your people make those interactions. Have people bringing in, because what that does is it creates a multiplying culture. Not an additional culture, a multiplying culture. All right? So, after all this is said and done, all right, you've got your people. They're all around. They're interested. All of your people are in the lobbies with happy faces and not the angry resting face, as we'll call it today. Grumpy cats. So, you got your people. What do you do with them? What do you do with them? They're all waiting to get involved, right? So, you bring them on your team. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to cast the vision as to why you do what you do. How many times do you hear, why do you do the laugh like that? Why is it so loud? Why is it so soft? Why do you all come at 6 in the morning? Why do you know, if they have no direction, at all, then they're not going to follow you because they have no idea what they're following. You know what I mean? At least when the Israelites were in the desert, they knew they were supposed to wander around the desert. There's a promised land out there. There is. You got to cross the river, but it's out there. At least they had a vision. They knew where to go. They just chose not to do it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So when Jesus got all the disciples, there was direction. There was trajectory. They were supposed to go there. So if you don't cast vision, if there's not a clear goal, when you're trying to build your team, it'll fail. Because they have no idea why they're doing what they do. Because you all know the barrage of questions that we get constantly of, why is this? Why is that? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? You know, if you say, for example, Faith Promise, we love lost people. Okay? We want the people that are the dregs, the people off the street. They don't know Jesus. So when I didn't know Jesus and I started going to Faith Promise, and it looked like an Allman Brothers concert, there was 57 guitars on stage and all this other stuff, it's like, this kind of makes sense because I was, in a band. I traveled around, Percy Sledge and horn band, and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And it's loud enough to where if I could get into one of the tunes, I could sing it, and no one will hear me. And if I decide to raise my hand a little bit, I'm surrounded by this wall of light that happens to be a mood color, so I don't feel exposed. I have this comfort blanket of lighting and sound to where all I'm focused on is the gospel. All I'm focused on is those words. And if you don't explain that on the front end to your team, and someone comes up, why is it this way? I don't know. Because we're after lost people. In our case, that's why we do what we do. It's appealing to people that are leaving the club and they walk into the church and they see the same feeling. Although we're saying gospel, we're saying scripture, we're saying all that. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. So cast your vision. 2, have a clear on-ramp. Have a clear on-ramp. And I'm going to talk about something that we took this idea from Highlands College in Alabama. And they had, it's called Infuse. And we completely stole the name Infuse because it's such a great name. Because like if you're bringing people in, infuse them into the process, like a great name. We're going to do Infuse. So on Tuesday nights we have this thing called Infuse. So all of our worship volunteers have to go through Infuse. They have to go through it. They will not be able to push a button. They will not be able to get on a platform. They will not be able to do anything until they've been through Infuse. And what this on-ramp does is it starts them from the beginning all the way through the end to where they're equipped to do their craft. Okay? See, it's funny with people, our job is to find the people, right? And then we have to call out what we see in them. Because people have something to bring to the table. Everyone has something to bring to the table. That doesn't mean that everybody in here can run front of house at our church. But there's something you can do in our ministry. And what we're going to do is we're going to call you and we're going to put you in the right facet and let you thrive in it. Does it make sense? So by having people come in our Infuse process, we're not just gauging their talent. We're gauging their heart first and foremost. We do believe in excellence. And then what we're doing is we're wanting to build a community out the gate. So that when they're coming out, they not only are in the right mindset of our vision and the heart of why we do what we do, they're also excellent at their craft automatically before they get in front of real people. And they have this relationship. So when they go out to the multi-sites, it's just another experience. And they're going to walk in. It's just like, if you've been to college or seminary and you find that when you get into your craft that, the big world becomes very, very small. So we had a South Knoxville connection. I had no idea until today, but now we do. And you're right down from my mom. So I know that. And it becomes a very small world. So by Infuse, what we want to do is we want to take our people, equip them, put them out. They already know people, so they're not walking in fresh, right? And then they go and they do. And they're put in the right seat. And then from there, we can further develop those people, and then they can do other things. Case in point, I got a guy named Mike Kogel. I called him out of the blue. Because I got a list when we were starting Farragut. Hey, you need to call these people on the list. Once upon a time, I've had like 15 jobs in my life. I told you I was a little bit of a hustler growing up, so I've had like a ton of jobs. I was a telemarketer once. I'm not proud of it, but I was a telemarketer and I was good. I was really good at telemarketing. And probably, back in those days, I was not saved and probably not the greatest job for me. But, I telemarketed well, so it was okay to do a cold call. And so I called this guy named Mike. Mike's one of these, he's older guy, he's retired. Kind of a real, kind of gruff kind of guy, yeah, man, I heard this, I'm all about the vision, I want to be part of your church. He's like, look, but, I made my money, I just want to, I just want to schlep boxes. I was like, okay. So he comes in, we get him infused. He's like, this is cool. I just want to do the things again. I don't want to get too involved. Come to find out, the guy has massive leadership potential. Like, the dude is like, he wanted to schlep boxes, which he still does every other week when I'm not having him run my experience. Because what I found out, he was hyper organized, super motivated, self-starter, very personable, loves people, and he's good at logistics. He was like a CEO at some, car plant in Detroit, and I had no idea that it existed, that was his whole life for a long time. He's like, I've been in the corporate world, I want out. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, you're not in the corporate world. You're in the church world, and you're going to lead people because you're a leader. And I can't not do that. And he started there, but I saw that in him. And by that process, we were able to find that, call him out, put him on the right seat of the bus. So put your people on the right seat of the bus once you have your team. You have to put them on the right seat, because otherwise they're going to burn out. If they're not winning every single week, then they're going to burn out and they're going to leave. Celebrate the wins. Celebrate them. You could go through all day long and talk about how awful the experience was. You missed this, you missed that. We missed something. Did it derail? Did someone's salvation just get jeopardized because we missed a lotting transition? Shake it off. Get it next time. That's a win. You got through the service. I say it every week. Hey guys, does the keyboard work? Yep, we got sound, we got a service. Do we have lights? Great. That's frosting. We have lights. We got a service. Celebrate the wins. So, after you have put them on the on-ramp, it's time to build relationships. This is so important. Has anyone ever read the book, 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell? Does anyone know that book? If you have not read that book, you should read that book. It's a great book. But he talks about the 5 levels of leadership. Number 1 is your position. If you're working from a positional standpoint, you just have a title. So essentially you're like a manager, if you will. So you do, Pastor Josh, because I said so, and I outrank you. Okay, so what that tends to do is that tends to say to Pastor Josh, he'll be like, okay, I'll do the bare minimum of what you're asking me to do just so I don't lose my job. Okay, I'm leaving at 5 o'clock on the dot because that's our relationship. He tells me I do. You know what I mean? The second level is relational. And I think relational should be all of the levels because relationships are so important. When you build relationships with people, real relationships, like you meet somebody for the first time and you do the small talk thing, whatever. Know about their kids. Know about their story. I love to ask people, what's your story? What's your story? Because everybody to me has interesting stories. They really do. How'd you come here? What we were at the Passion concert. It was actually your colleague. Passion was standing there, and I was talking to this guy. It's Chris, right? Your worship leader. I was talking to Chris. And I would rather talk to Chris about his life than the entire Passion Band at the moment because he has an interesting life. So if you're asking people their stories and then you can relate to that, then it makes you vulnerable. It makes them vulnerable. Then you have this sort of reciprocated relational value that you add into people, and and it's not just to work. It's just because our jobs as pastors, we have to care for these people. We have to know what they're walking through. But at the same time, they're going to work harder for you than they work harder than their jobs. I have people that will put in more hours at church than they do at their job. And I'm like, why don't you go home? Because this is what fills me up. And I don't want to let you guys down. And I'm going to put in 10 hours on a live show, which I think is just, it's absurd to me. I'm like, how do you spend that much time on a live show? But whatever. I'm going to do this rather than go to work. I'm like, I love you, but you got to go home. But that's just the relational value. When you build those true relationships with people, they're going to work harder for you. They're going to be stronger recruiters for you. They're going to buy into the vision because they buy into you. And that's what good leadership is building relationships. And from there you build on. So you build on because it's successful. Success breeds success. And then, the next level is just longevity. So as long as you are relational, winning, stuff like that, it all sort of creates this momentum that brings in more people. And the last thing that I would say to have a successful team, and this one is hard for every single leader in this room, is empowering your team over controlling. Empowerment over control. When you empower a team, that's when you start seeing the real magic happen. It's incredible. So this week at Infuse, we have most of our staff is gone. Michelle and Pastor are in London at a conference, and then a ton of us went to ARC in Alabama at Highlands. So they're still there. And we had to have Infuse. We had auditions, and then we had our individual campus non-infuses that were just for our campus people essentially, and some global that are still in our process or whatnot. And in order to put this on, it takes a massive amount of people, and most of it is still pseudo staff run. So it was an interesting scenario this week because we didn't have the staff to run it. And I had to do my campus night. And since we're portable, we have to do it at the broadcast campus where I was holding auditions. So I'm the vocal director and I run the weekend experience. I cannot put myself in two places at the same time. So essentially, I had to run auditions, and then my volunteers had to run Infuse. And this is the first time we really had a completely voluntary run Infuse. And I'm calling people, and I'm equipping them, and I'm calling to my associate producer, which is basically like my stand-in when I'm not producing. And I'm not Faith. You got to run the room, blah, 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 all this stuff. And what I'm doing is I'm taking these volunteers, and I'm essentially saying, hey, you're me. You have every bit of power, you have every bit of say-so, you have every bit of clout that I have right now in this moment. You're going to run this room. I don't have to be there. I can't be there. I physically cannot go do auditions and physically be down in this room right now. Did they run into problems? Yes, they did. Did they freak out about it? No. They troubleshooted it, shot. Thank you. Troubleshot it. I like shooted, actually. Okay. They troubleshot it. Just like they would on a weekend. It was this beautiful thing because I found out, the tracks weren't loaded in. There was an issue with something else, and I asked one of the guys. I was like, so how did she do with that? She's real calm about it. Just kind of went through, and they got out on time, and it was just a great experience. And I was just thinking, like, I don't have to be there. I've empowered my team, and when you empower a team over control, it gives them so much stock into what they're doing. Let them make mistakes. Let them learn from those mistakes. You know what I mean? And if we're constantly going over and just battering ram, no, it will not empower them. They won't have any empowerment. They won't be able to make any decisions. A lot of times I say that I work from 6 in the morning until 8:30. 9:30. Until 9:30. And at 9:30, when we're done, I just toss it over to my volunteers. And my whole job is to be out in the lobby with my kind-looking face and shaking hands and meeting people. You're running this. Well, what should we do in this scenario? I don't know. You tell me. I know the answer, but I want them to tell me the answer. And I want them to make, and listen, if you're secure in your leadership, some of your volunteers have better ideas than you. I have one guy named David Sands. David Sands is brilliant. David was very vocal, a very questioning spirit, and hard to work with. And there's some times that we would be going back and forth, and David just told me, he said, listen, I'm going to say what I'm going to say. Ultimately, you can trump me because I honor your position. I was like, okay, cool. And there was one time we were going back and forth over something, and David said, here's how I would do it. And I said, David, that's brilliant. My way was terrible. You do your way, and we're going to go your way. What that did was that added value to him. But at the end of the day, there's some days I'd say, David, we're not doing it that way because that's not our culture. Okay. But I had that relationship with him where I could speak into his life. And I could say, we're just not. And I had the vision behind it. This is why We're not doing it that way. It's not our culture. And then, okay, I can get behind that. That's cool. Thanks. So empowering goes it's the last point I make, but it's the most important. When you have your team and you empower them, they are incredible. And they will do anything, and they will make anything happen. Because you know as well as I do on a Sunday morning, anything can happen. And no one has a clue what happens as you open the doors and they walk in and everything just seems to be working. Everything that happened that morning they don't know, and they shouldn't know until they get involved. They're infused and the tracks don't work. They get a taste of that, but that's it. If you empower your team just to go through and do it, they'll make it happen for you because they want to, not because they have to. So I'm going to end with a story before we ask questions, and I would love questions because again, I'm not. I told Pastor Josh, I was like, I'm a very plain-spoken communicator, so I just kind of talk like I talk to people. So, I like to ask a lot of questions, and I'm probably way ahead on time, but maybe, I don't know. But here's a story about how all of this sort of came in. This guy named Chase. Chase Vi was a drummer, and I was going into Blount, and I mentioned our Blount campus had let a person go. The culture was terrible. Everybody was mad at each other. And I had an opportunity to come in and turn the culture around and get it cranking again. So I came in, new guy, one of them from the broadcast campus, so I had to really, really kind of step lightly because this team was a strong-willed team led by the guy I just told you about, David. And he led well, still leading well. But it was just a lot of sour taste in the mouth. And one of the first things I did was I came in, I looked at Planning Center and I saw my team. I didn't know anybody at this point. I had no idea who their names were or whatever. I saw Chase Vi, drums. So I came up to Chase and he was sitting at the drums and I said, "Hey Chase, I'm Phil." Automatically I became approachable. I'd never met the guy before, but I had a cheat sheet. I knew his name. And I came up and introduced myself. "Hey Chase, I'm Phil." "Hey Phil, how's it going?" So we got to talking and yeah, man, let me know, what y'all usually do around here. I'm trying to just get some intel because I don't really know what I'm walking into. How's it usually work on the weekend? How many runs do y'all usually get through? Blah, 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 So I met him by calling him by name. Automatically I became accessible. So as we started building a relationship, we would go out to what we called bro coffee because he was a student at the time, and he would got off early from school. There was a really cool coffee shop, and he would help me set up on Wednesdays because Wednesdays we were always shorthanded, and if you've ever worked students, it's a fickle thing whether or not they show up. So he would help me set up, and we'd do these bro coffees. So as we started having these bro coffees, the conversation went from talking shop to talking life and talking struggles and talking, so at this point I was approachable, accessible and approachable to him. He felt like he could talk to me and come to me with things that he was concerned with in his life. So as our relationship started growing, he started gaining more leadership. I was able to be a coach to him and show him how to do things, how to lead people, because he had no idea how to lead people. He would come in and just say, "This needs to happen, this needs to happen, this needs to," and just leave. It's like, "Hey man, I need to be a coach to you. Let me show you how to do this. Let me show you how to recruit." So as he started really getting into this whole deal with, being a big time leader, I got to cast the vision to him. We got him through Infuse on production because he started out as a drummer and he knew nothing about lights and he really liked to do lights. We got him infused on that. Started building relationships with other staff members. Taught him how to do that, who to go through. So he started building those relationships, and then he became empowered. So at this point, he started as a drummer. He was designing all my light shows for all of my big productions. Well then, at broadcast, they caught an eye of what he was doing. And now he's our global LD. And he just started as a kid. He's right out of high school, and he's our lighting designer for FP Global. And it all started with a handshake. So you never know the people that you talk to, the people that you meet. People are our lifeblood. And you never know with those insignificant meetings, how significant they will be. So, that being said, thank you all very much for letting me talk to you all today. And if you'll have any questions or anything from your experience, or I can answer.
It's kind of a comment. You may take it and share a little bit more. Just the empowerment piece. It's just good. Last month, Pastor Josh shared. It wasn't about teams necessarily, but it was about prepping, preparing. And you talked about how much that empowered the folks, the volunteers and your staff, just by being prepared. And you talk about that empowerment. And what I wrote down was empowerment is almost like the fertilizer for the church. That's what I'm getting over these last 2 months, just how that really can make your church grow. You know.
That's
so
great.
I appreciated your comments on empowerment, man. That's how y'all got that worked into your process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I like the fertilizer for the church thing. I'm totally still. What's your name?
Robert.
Rob? Okay, cool, man. Fertilizer for your church. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add that in after this.
You can preach that.
Trademark, Rob. Anything else?
Casting the vision happens more one-on-one. Because, yeah, they hear the sermon and there's vision cast from that, but the way you were talking, it seemed like it was more like, as a staff person, you got to cast that vision. We can't depend on just the sermon getting the vision to the people. They've got to see the culture. Does that make sense what I'm asking? Yeah.
It does, and it's sort of both and. So every morning we do community time. Like we'll go and just grind to get that up, and you know as well as I do, if you've been portable, it's really kind of a tricky thing. Just to make everything work, and when you do, and the individual run-throughs happen, we pull together. And when we pull together during community time, me or the associate producer who is running the room at the time, they do community time. And the very first thing, every single week, vision casting. Who are we after? Lost people. Let's tell stories about that. Celebrate, interaction that you had, something like that. So it happens from the platform, it happens in community time, it happens individually, and it's constant. We constantly cast vision just to sort of reallocate while we're here. Because as people start getting tired, and it gives a little crease for the enemy to start messing. That's when bad things can happen. If they lose sight of the vision of what we're doing. That's when it gets real messy. Or, I work primarily with vocalists. I love vocalists. I am one of them. But with it, there comes a little bit of an ego. It's just the nature of the beast. And a lot of times, well, why can't I do this? Well, here's the deal. I need you to sing in unison without all the tasty licks everywhere, because it needs to be powerful so they can sing it back. You need to sing a melody line because they won't know the melody line because you got too many tasty licks. You know what I mean? And it's just constant, one-on-one, platform, so both ends.
So knowing the why.
Knowing the why.
Yeah.
Always know the why. Always know the why.
I don't mean for my two questions to sound negative, but how do you tell bad vocalists they're bad vocalists because they're trying out? Is there a step before the actual tryout and be like, it's not really working out? And do they stick around Faith Promise afterwards?
Well, okay, so we do audition. So there's not like video audio, we do live auditions. So essentially they'll get their communication then. And typically, if they don't make it past that point, because even the people that are being auditioned, they're decent vocalists. That's just the tip of the iceberg. We have, we're an engaging worship culture, and it's almost like, to answer your question, yes, we do tell them on the front end, but if there are people that don't make it through a process, and I've got what we call evaluators or myself we have to have those conversations, and we have to say, hey, when they're in what we call a training track, that's where they're trying to work everything out. It's not free music lessons, but we don't have the margin to bring people through. So we usually give them 3 times to get evaluated, and based on their evaluation, either we cut them then or we give them 3 more to figure it out, and whatever their issue is. So for example, if it's a good vocalist, if they make it in, they can sing. But if they stand there like this the whole time, you know, your stage engagement is very low. We cannot pass you on, because if you look at our services, we are a high engaging, and I'm sorry, but we can't do that. Can I get you plugged in somewhere else? I think with any conversation, you have to go the extra 10%. You have to do your due diligence, because what you end up doing, if you pass people before their time, then compound over time, that's going to hurt you in the long run. And it's almost like pulling the Band-Aid off. So we do tell people on the front end, and we try to get them on the right seat of the bus. There's one particular volunteer who worked herself into a position because she was a really good vocalist and she didn't move well. It's very unnatural. And she has multiple degrees in music, and she's very, very good musically. And it was one of those conversations that was like, hey, we can't pass you on, but here's an option for you. Take these movement lessons. So she learned a few ways to move that look more natural on stage, and now it was more natural. She just didn't know what she was doing with her hands. So it was like, you know, yeah, scarecrow, you know, like, but that all those conversations, as hard as they are, they have to be, that you have to have them, and it's because, you know, the ultimate. The ultimate trajectory for that person, it could really put them on the right seat if they're just not, and they may not know, maybe a blind spot for them, and they have to know that. So yeah, we do have those conversations a lot, but they're a necessary thing, and they're not easy ever. And if you like having those conversations, then we probably need to go pray for you in the back, because there may be some hard issues going on. So, but great question, absolutely. Anybody else?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And I'm not sure exactly how this will apply to what you've been through in your experience, but I've looked really deep and I can't find a book on building small groups in Crossville. It's like Knoxville's multicultural. Crossville is insiders, outsiders, people that live there all their life and people that have moved there. Out of all of our small groups, only one leader team is from Crossville. All the others are outsiders. The problem is people who live there all their life won't commit to groups being led by outsiders. There's a total lack of commitment. Any wisdom nuggets you can throw my way?
Absolutely. So we actually, for the longest time, with small groups in particular, oh, that one hits deep for me, because we as part of our core, we have to be in a small group, so we have community, and how we used to do them traditionally was, you know, you just go visit these small groups, and I was always just the kind of odd duck in all of them, because I didn't have a church background. So I got to a point where I didn't like any of them, and I started my own, and so it was you know, people kind of float in and float out, and I noticed that there was a void, kind of like what you were saying, you know, like they don't want outsiders in. So just recently they revamped groups where we have like connect groups that meet. So for example, Pastor Zach, my campus pastor, is at the same gym as me, and he looks like it because he's huge. But he actually has a small group of men that they work out together in the morning. And that's considered a small group because they'll pray before, there's community there. So really what it is more of an outward focus. You know, I think for me, it was hard for me to go to somebody's house that I did not know. I was already uncomfortable. I didn't know the churchy talk or anything like that. And I'm walking in and just, you know, I don't want to embarrass my wife. And I was really uncomfortable in every small group. And even the people that are coming in for the first time in my small group, which we still have in our house, you know, I'm overly trying to make them comfortable, but I found that they get uncomfortable by my overly making me, you know, like trying to, you know. So I guess if you're out, if you have some kind of hobby, or
Right.
if you're out at a gym, or if you're out at whatever they do in your community, and you just strike up a relationship with the people, and then you find out where they are with Jesus, you can make a small group out of that, or two or more gathered, and that being said, I mean, everybody is doing common interest things, and, it could be a softball team, it could be, a chess club, but, if you just focus it on Jesus, and you all are talking scripture, and what it does is it allows for community, because really that's all a small group is.
Right.
It's a community of believers. So when they're all together, then it's a small group, and then it'll grow. So I know Pastor Zach has seen a lot of success with the weightlifting group, and they meet every morning at like 6, and there's all kinds of folks that hang out and they don't know Jesus. They just hang out and they're like cool with the praying, but they have no idea why, and they're able to reach some of those people every single week just by that constant interaction.
What would you say is the percentage relationship discipleship ratio in groups?
I think at first you could probably say 60 relationship, 40 discipleship, if you're allowed. That's the biggest thing, is gaining access, I think. You have to ask permission to speak into people's lives.
I guess the discipleship doesn't matter if you don't have the relationship.
Exactly, yeah. And I just look at my own life, and the way when I was in high school, especially, the way that people would just, it was more like talking at me,
Right.
and I was just like, I don't want anything to do with this. The point where I was atheist in college, I did not believe, at all, until I started understanding, the heart behind it, and why do you care so much, kind of a thing, and got some real people. I think if you come off really sincerely loving people and wanting to know who they are, then you have permission to speak in their lives, and they can take it, they can receive it or not, but you're at least doing it, and it's like, hey, I love you, but whatever it may be. Anything else? It's a great question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I guess that's all we have for today. Thank you all for letting me talk, and I appreciate it.
Rick, you got anything?
Thank you guys for being here. For our church planters, we are negotiating with Right Now Media as we speak. You should have access to that within the next couple of weeks for your entire congregation. So we'll be uploading our videos, but we'll also be able to get you connected to training for worship leadership, for teams, for small group leaders, for things like that. That should be coming to you within the next couple of weeks. And if you're interested in heading to Expo 2019, I realize this is long-term planning for church planters, but we have 26 tickets available through the network. First come, first serve. That is Orlando next March. The theme is releasing the entire body of Christ for ministry. So if you feel like Jesus might be calling you to Orlando for a week in March, I would encourage you to go with us.
Cool. Have I got anything else?
Right.